So let's begin with our third module, innovation for the payout phase. During this session, we're going to have the overview of associated risk for the payout phase and innovative products that are already in the market to face in the best way possible the payout phase, with a special concentration on longevity risk. Before going to the speakers, because you had mentioned this before the break, that all of presentations that have been discussed today, presented today, and a film of every one of the presentations will be available on the website of AIOS from next week on. So from next week on, you will have all of the presentations that we have heard today. So today we're going to be with Juan Pedro Cantera. He's the Superintendent of Financial Services of Uruguay. He joined the institution in October 1979 actually. Is this inflation? We had 20 presentations. Exactly in this one we made a mistake. Sorry, Juan Pedro. Let's say 1980. I don't know how to continue. Well, during his career, he has served as head of the Department of Standards and Procedures and as area manager of study and financial regulation. Since March 2009, he has been the Superintendent of Financial Supervision. He's a public accountant, graduated from Universidad de la República in 1987. We made some mistakes here, so well, I need to ask beforehand. I want to survive. Many things I don't want. For example, I cannot speak English, but survival for me, it's very important. So in 2009, he obtained the master's degree in banking management from the Carlos III University in Madrid, in Spain. Juan Pedro Cantera will be then moderating this panel. And here we are going to have Jessica Mascher. We would like her to join us. She is an analyst in a private pension unit of OECD. Her work focuses primarily on topics related to the management of risk in finance and retirement, and in particular, longevity risk, generating research that has an objective, the sustainability and adequacy of pensions. Prior to joining the OECD, she was working in the central risk management team of a global insurer, where she was mainly responsible for developing the modeling of mortality and longevity risk in Solvency II. Ms. Mascher is a fellow of the Society of Actuaries and holds a Master of Science in Behavioral Science from the London School of Economics and Political Science, and a BS in Economics from the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. And we also have Marcos Morales, who is an Associate Professor of Economics at the University Diego Portales of Chile. Previously, he has served as a chief of the research division of the Superintendency of Securities and Insurance, economic advisor of the Ministry of Finances, and economist at the research department of the Superintendency of Banks and Financial Institutions. He has also been consultant of FIAP, Corporate Affairs Division of the OECD, Division of Operation and Financial Sector Policy of the World Bank, and to the Division of Statistics and Projection of ECLAC. He holds a PhD in economics from Boston University. And our fourth speaker is Herman Camille. Herman Camille is the director of the Debt Management Unit in the Ministry of Economy and Finance of Uruguay since March 2015. Previously, he worked for 10 years in the International Monetary Fund, holding different roles at the Western Hemisphere and International Capital Markets departments. He has a degree in economics from Universidad de la República in Uruguay and a PhD in economics from the University of Michigan in the US. I give the floor to Juan Pedro Cantera. So, as part of today's hosts, I'm really happy to have you here. You come from different countries, and regarding this topic that is very important for the development of our society and the improvement of life quality of citizens once they go into retirement. We have 3 speakers here of great quality, and I would like to give them the floor to every one of those. First of all, I will give the floor to Jessica. So, please. Buenas tardes, muchas gracias. ¿Se escucha bien? Voy a hablarles un poco sobre las diferentes maneras que se pueden diseñar todo esto para ver el riesgo de la vida de las personas. Yo hablo sobre cualquier tipo de arreglo, donde la idea es tener un ingreso en la fase de retiro, en la fase de pensionados. Lo digo de manera neutral en cuanto a las instituciones. Obviamente estoy hablando de productos de diferentes jurisdicciones. Lo que quiero darles es 2 mensajes principales. El primero es que compartir riesgos en este tipo de productos para pensiones puede ser una manera razonable para tener el balance entre los costos de tener garantías durante las pensiones y la necesidad de las personas de tener un ingreso fijo. Y la otra cosa es que saber que este tipo de sesiones es muy importante. Voy a decirles que no solamente tenemos que enfocarnos en la desacumulación. Nosotros también deberíamos ver las pensiones como todo un proceso continuo. Para no decir, bueno, sí, la desacumulación está avanzada en cuanto a la acumulación. En realidad tenemos que diseñar todo un sistema pensando sobre todo el proceso. Entonces, habiendo dicho esto, vamos a ver un poco los riesgos de nuevo que los individuos tienen en la financiación de su retiro. Estos son los riesgos que deberían tratar de evitarse en el proceso. Aquí podemos ver que los más grandes en la acumulación es no contribuir suficiente o riesgos de inversiones. Hay muchas políticas que se han introducido de manera efectiva para tratar de evitar estos riesgos o reducirlos. Por ejemplo, estrategias de inversión por default, etc. Entonces, cuando vemos la parte de los retiros o pensiones, hay otros riesgos más significativos, empezando con el riesgo de la tasa de interés. Porque esta gran transición fuerte entre la acumulación y desacumulación puede llevar a riesgos de longevidad y no tener más ingresos. Entonces hay que tomar todos estos riesgos en consideración para poder enfrentarlos. Uno de los retos en tener esta proyección de longevidad es los gastos y las garantías. Entonces, es costoso garantizar y financiar esto, sobre todo las garantías de longevidad. Y por otro lado, en cuanto a la demanda, queremos tanto seguridad como estabilidad y flexibilidad. Y estas dos cosas pueden tener un costo agregado y es muy difícil tenerlos al mismo tiempo en el mismo arreglo. Y además de esto, tenemos que las personas realmente no quieren siempre no quieren pagar todos sus ahorros de pensión porque para evitar los riesgos de longevidad. Entonces, para poder dar estas garantías, tenemos este deseo en cuanto al acceso de los ahorros para las pensiones. Entonces, este cambio va de un extremo de arreglos que lo garantiza totalmente para el otro extremo, donde estos riesgos se ponen en los miembros individualmente, pero hay otras opciones entre estos dos extremos. Y eso tiene obviamente un nivel de riesgo compartido. Si tienes, por ejemplo, proveedores de diferentes tipos, capaz se pueden ofrecer diferentes soluciones. La idea es encontrar el mejor balance en cuanto al balance de seguridad y beneficios. Acá tenemos algunos de los ejemplos dependiendo de los arreglos que se hagan y cómo los riesgos se comparten entre el proveedor, es decir, cómo se distribuyen en el plan. Acá tenemos a la izquierda todo lo que empezamos a dejar un poco atrás, donde están todos los riesgos están en el proveedor, donde siempre tenemos las rentas vitalicias tradicionales, y en realidad queremos también desarrollar algo más allá de compartir riesgo. La idea es buscar el balance entre costo y flexibilidad para poder distribuir todo el riesgo a la persona en sí antes de garantizar. Los impactos ahora no los tenemos, capaz solamente están en Estados Unidos, donde parece que hay una falta de demanda con los productos de renta vitalicia y capaz puede haber poca demanda por toda la cuestión regulatoria y oferta en realidad. Bueno, entonces acá tenemos algunos arreglos donde los riesgos están compartidos y esto normalmente ofrece una garantía mínima nominal con el potencial de tener mayores pagos en cuanto a las experiencias de longevidad y normalmente se espera un mayor beneficio, pero en el caso de esa experiencia el beneficio puede bajar a esto combinado garantizado a un nivel mínimo de seguridad. Entonces también estamos viendo un cambio hacia planes que no tienen ningún tipo de garantía, que mitigan el riesgo de los pensionados, sacando a todos los riesgos de los participantes que están involucrados, y estos son las opciones de acumulación colectiva y diferentes tipos de contribuciones. Hay muchos tipos de rentas vitalicias, varían en su estructura. Cuando vemos las consideraciones del diseño, antes de ver esto, quería decirles otro punto importante, hacer la observación de que aunque podamos encontrar este balance entre costos y seguridad y tener opciones interesantes, antes de que se dé la desacumulación, donde hay riesgos compartidos, donde tenemos este ambiente seguro y flexible, la idea de mitigar este riesgo de longevidad, nos podemos enfocar igual en la desacumulación, pero creo que el gran reto es que las personas tomen estos productos, que los acepten. Parece contraintuitivo que uno de los grandes motores para esto es la pérdida de seguridad. Como había dicho antes, nosotros capaz pensamos que si la persona tiene una aversión contra la pérdida, capaz toman los productos, pero realmente el hecho de que ellos están entregando todos sus ahorros, de los ahorros de su vida, realmente lo hace difícil. Ellos podrían morir en 2 días, entonces realmente no es fácil que lo acepten. Ellos piensan que van a perder todos los ahorros de su vida. Entonces, ese es donde viene la aversión a la pérdida. Y esto obviamente se puede ajustar si vamos un poco más allá y dejamos de pensar solamente en la desacumulación, sino también sobre todo el proceso de la pensión, la acumulación y la desacumulación como un todo. Y esto va a tratar de superar los obstáculos mentales, porque podemos ver a cada contribución que está entrando en cada pensión y se puede ver en un beneficio esperado. Esto no tiene que ser garantizado, pero tiene que ver con un salario esperado, etcétera, etcétera, y se puede traducir en los parámetros del plan para un beneficio esperado. Y esto va a permitir, es decir, psicológicamente es más fácil porque ellos no están entregando todos sus ahorros de una vez, sino que están dando algunas contribuciones poco a poco. Y creo que Matthew ya había hablado un poco sobre esto, todo el marco mental de todo esto. Es diferente a lo que decíamos de $150 a $5. Es decir, en vez de ver que se les reducen los ahorros ellos pueden ver cada pequeña contribución cuando las van entregando. Entonces, esta es una manera en la que podemos integrar para aumentar la probabilidad de la protección de longevidad. Lo otro es que estamos yendo a un punto de transición entre la acumulación y la desacumulación, que para que sea algo sin problemas. Las personas van a empezar a recibir sus pensiones automáticamente cuando lleguen a la edad. Y esto es importante porque la decisión sobre qué hacer con este gran dinero, esta gran cantidad de dinero, es algo muy importante. Muchas personas no están listas para enfrentar esta carga y no es algo que ellos han intentado hacer antes, porque esto es algo realmente lo tienes que hacer solamente una vez en la vida, y las personas van a tratar de dejarlo para después o ponerlos en unas cuentas de inversión, y realmente son decisiones que no son financieramente las mejores para ninguna persona. Entonces estamos tratando de sacar esa decisión tan difícil, tratando de hacer esta transición sin ningún tipo de problemas. Y finalmente, algo que es muy importante sobre los arreglos de tipo colectivo es que al hacer esto podemos tener más ingresos estables y más altos, porque si no fuera así no está garantizado. Una razón de esto es que hemos removido el punto de transición entre acumulación y desacumulación para que no sea necesario para hacer ningún tipo de desviación de la estrategia de inversión, para poder mantener también la estrategia de crecimiento alto, que va también a resultar en un ingreso más alto. Y también por el horizonte, la perspectiva a largo plazo, hay un potencial para compartir los riesgos de inversión que pueden ser mitigados al poner más personas en este plan y reducir la volatilidad y todos estos riesgos sistémicos que pueden ser más fáciles de llevar con el tiempo. Todos estos tipos de arreglos que había mencionado antes pueden ser diseñados solamente para cubrir la parte de la desacumulación, pero también pueden extenderse a la fase de acumulación. Entonces, dado el costo de proveer garantías completas en una perspectiva a largo plazo, normalmente esto va a ser solamente sustentable si se comparten los riesgos dentro del diseño. Algunas de las maneras en las que este compartir de riesgos puede funcionar entre el miembro y el proveedor se puede hacer solamente en la acumulación, por ejemplo, se hace a nivel individual, compartiendo solamente los riesgos de inversión y teniendo un retorno garantizado mínimo sobre las contribuciones. Esto puede también involucrar compartir riesgos de inversión. Esto solamente se hace normalmente a nivel colectivo. Eso tiene que ver un poco sobre el riesgo de longevidad en la parte de desacumulación. Eso garantiza, como había dicho, un beneficio nominal mínimo con mayores pagos dependiendo en la experiencia de la persona. Y esto puede ser como un bono, como en el caso de rentabilidad o renta vitalicia, o pueden ser pagos condicionados donde se hacen avance, pero si el pago no es suficiente, entonces va a variar. Entonces, cuando vemos en estos arreglos colectivos, acá tenemos varios tipos de ellos. Esto remueve la garantía por completo. Hay muchas consideraciones de diseño en este tipo de planes. Primero que nada, cómo se acumulan los beneficios. Si queremos mantener esta óptica en que cada contribución va a tener un beneficio, entonces tenemos que tener una manera de definirlo. Y eso se puede hacer como una fórmula tipo DB, cada contribución tiene 70% de contribución, o la DC, en que cada contribución se espera que tenga un retorno sobre una inversión. Y dado que estos beneficios tampoco están garantizados, entonces tiene que haber algún mecanismo definido para ver cómo se ajustan los beneficios, para ver si los beneficios, si no se pueden, si no están presentes. Por ejemplo, tenemos indexación, el ajuste de los beneficios nominales y también tasas de acumulación. Todo esto que está acumulando los beneficios que les había comentado. Y no es necesario hacerlo, pero igual, para poder mitigar algunas de las volatilidades potenciales, puede haber mecanismos para compartir los riesgos. por ejemplo, para hacer esa inversión más fácil, tener un fondo de buffer donde hay algunos retornos positivos y también retornos negativos. Estos fondos de buffer van a crear nuevos fondos para controlar la volatilidad a corto plazo. Ahí se puede tolerar faltas de fondos en algunos periodos de tiempo o inclusive en algún momento del proceso. Y también la gobernanza de este tipo de arreglos es muy importante para asegurarnos que hay una buena gerencia del plan, donde ellos pueden mostrar que pueden realmente manejar todo esto de la manera correcta y para asegurarse que las reglas de los objetivos y los mecanismos son muy objetivas y lo más transparentes posibles. De manera colectiva, obviamente, tenemos mucho potencial para ver los balances entre el costo y la seguridad, pero obviamente hay retos que siguen ahí. En cuanto a las regulaciones, esto es muy relevante. Lo primero es la flexibilidad. Había mencionado que la dificultad de balancear seguridad y flexibilidad a la vez y sacar lo colectivo haría que haya menos oportunidades, digamos, para que estos planes ofrezcan flexibilidad en cuanto a los beneficios individuales. Entonces, normalmente van a ser definidas para el plan como un todo y también el hecho de tener la habilidad de salirse del plan. Podemos potencialmente dejar que haya algunos retiros durante la fase de acumulación, cualquier tipo de arreglo en el que queramos proteger el riesgo de longevidad de los pensionados. Y en un segundo punto, entonces no podrían permitirla salirse del programa. Este es un reto de comunicación para que las personas acepten que ellos que están contribuyendo para el plan, pero que no pueden sacar sus activos. Otro reto es la transparencia, particularmente donde los mecanismos para compartir riesgos se imponen, son bastante complejos y son difíciles de entender para la persona, y es donde la gobernanza es crucial para acceder a este tipo de planes y para asegurarnos de que las reglas en cuanto a estos mecanismos son objetivos, son consistentes y que la comunicación también es muy importante para asegurarse que las personas entiendan por qué y cómo se ajustan los beneficios, igual el hecho de que estos beneficios no están necesariamente garantizados. Y finalmente, un plan colectivo puede tener algunas preocupaciones en cuanto a la equidad. Por ejemplo, particularmente donde hay mecanismos de compartir riesgo que pueden hacer que los riesgos sean menos duros de las personas que están ahora recibiendo la pensión y también dependiendo de la corte. Los planes pueden estar diseñados de una manera para tener más o menos equidad intergeneracional, pero eso tiene que tomarse en consideración en las implicaciones que tendría. Bueno, entonces, mientras estos arreglos de colectividad ofrecen buenas soluciones para tener un balance entre las garantías, obviamente seguimos teniendo unos retos. Pero yo creo que con esto la idea es proveer las pensiones, pero pensando sobre esto como un proceso, diseñarlo como un todo, para poder dar una protección sobre el riesgo de longevidad y poder proteger a las personas, a los pensionados.
Adelante, Marco.
Bueno, primero que todo,
First of all, thank you very much, AIOS and IDB, for the invitation to give you my presentation at this seminar. This is an opportunity to discuss a topic which is essential in the development of the pension funds, pension systems.
ahí sí. Bueno, la idea de esta presentación
So this presentation is focused on looking at the role of longevity risk in the defined contribution schemes. The proposal has to do with the defined contribution system. We also need to keep in mind, as Jessica said, the general context of the pension system. Not only, we also have to talk about the defined benefits. The presentation will have the following topics: current challenges on pension systems, the background for Latin America, international evidence, and a proposal for longevity insurance, and final reflections. We're all going to show you some figures regarding longevity in Latin America, and I will also talk about the Chile's case, which I have a lot of information to share. First of all, what are the challenges of all pension systems? All pension systems try to prevent poverty in elderly people, and they also wish to soften consumption between the active stage of life and retirement age. This has to do also with the levels they want to reach for this objective, especially what level and how to reach this in a context of high longevity in a weak labor market. We look at this in the Latin American systems where we have a high level of informality and we have a very low density of affiliates given the volatility in the labor market. So in general, when we talk about pension systems, we need to have a component of solidarity, we need to have mandatory fees, and also voluntary schemes so that people can complement their mandatory savings with the pensions that they would like to earn when they retire. I can also show you the pension systems in two dimensions. One is funding, and the other one is determining the benefits. We have funded and non-funded. We have defined contribution or defined fees and defined benefits. So where do we want to go? How much and when do we have to fund, and how much and when with an insurance? When we talk about the most probable period is between the legal age of retirement and 75 years old. The probability of occurring a catastrophe or continue living, it's a low probability of a person dying in that period. So the most logical part of this would be to fund this period with savings. So the low probability period would be to have to survive after the life expectancy age. The best thing would be to have a fund that will take advantage of the efficiencies that we have. The objective here is to have adequate and sustainable pensions. Different to the other proposals that we've heard of, the mechanisms that we've heard about, which can mitigate this longevity risk by offering an insurance, I haven't heard anyone say that longevity risk can help improve the pensions. But this is very important. I'm sure that in all the countries in Latin America know that the pensions are very low. And when we talk about longevity, this can help us to improve the level of the insurance and is aligned with the pension system. This chart shows that longevity risk is present in both systems, in the benefits and the contributions. But there are other risks that are here in the chart. But when we talk about longevity risk, it's in the two systems. Now, who will be in charge? Or who will be in charge of this risk? In the defined benefit, it's the sponsor or the state in this case. And in the case of defined contribution or defined fees, it's the pensioner who will be taking on the risk. And apart from the insurance company, of course. So just to give you some more information. So 50 years ago, out of 100 people between 15 and 64 years of age, every 100 people who were between 15 and 64, there were 7 people who were above 65 years old. And today, or very recently at least, I think the information is still up to date. Today we have 11 people who are above 65 years of age, every 100 people who are in active age. And in 50 years' time, we will have 30 people who will be above 65 years of age, every 100 people in active ages. What happens with life expectancy, conditional life expectancy, when we reach 65 years of age, retirement age? So 50 years ago, 20% of the people who were 65 years old lived until they were 85. And life expectancy at 65 was 75. Today, 40% of the people who reach 65 years old will live until they are 85, and life expectancy is of 83 years of age. So we went from 73 to 83 years of age. We have 16 years more in life expectancy in the last 50 years. If you look at the effect on the pensions, it's about 2% or 3% on a yearly base. So that's how pensions are lowering, which is very significant. I'm not going to read everything here on this slide. I just wish to highlight what I was saying before, that if there's that an event can occur between 65 and 85 years of age, we should fund this with savings. But if it's a low probability event, if you can survive after the 85 years of age, this is a low probability event, and the best thing would be to fund this with an insurance. You can look at the rest of the slide afterwards when you get the presentations. What's the situation like in Chile? We have low pensions in general with regards to the expectations of people. If people knew that their pension depends on how much they contribute, then that they should adjust this in an endogenous way while they are working. But people don't understand this because it's a very complex system. So people are not satisfied when they retire with their pension. Their replacement rate is 40% or 30% of their salaries. However, we can make a simulation and see that if a person contributes during their whole work life, they can have 10% of their fees. They will have a replacement of 70% or more. That's what the system promises. Of course, the people have to contribute regularly. It's important here to mention the programmed withdrawals modality. This happens in other countries too. When you look at annuities also, you can have combinations with temporary annuities or deferred withdrawal. The basic difference is that programmed withdrawal does not have longevity risk included. I'm going to show you some graphs. The payment profile is decreasing, and it could also not be enough for the pension. The balance would not be enough in approximately for the life expectancy of the person. In the case of Chile, we have an adjustment factor when we have a minimum of 30% of the initial pension for the programmed withdrawal, so that level doesn't drop. And then the solidarity, which is a minimum base for the people who fall under these pension levels, and that would be 60% of the most vulnerable part of the population. In the case of the annuities, it covers longevity risk because it's a fixed payment in real terms. That's what we do in Chile. We do an index of inflation. And it has a difference is that the annuity gives benefits for the survivor. For example, the annuity has a benefit for the survivors, 60% of what the pensioner was receiving, in the case of the wife, for example, or the husband, whatever the case. In Peru and Mexico, this is similar. For annuities, programmed withdrawal, they have the right for inheritance. If the pensioner dies before the balance is over, they can inherit the pension. And I have too much detail on this slide, but I just wish to show you a chart. Here we can look at how the annuity works and how the mortality rates operate so that we can look at the risk pool for the people who survive after the retirement age. The blue part of the chart is profitability of capital, and the red part is capital, the savings of the pensioner, and the green part is the premium on mortality or mortality credit. The greatest part then of the funding of annuities come from mortality credits in retirement age. This is not, if we don't use this, we're leaving aside a very good part of funding that could improve the conditions. I'm going to skip this slide. I don't have time to read all of it. Let's talk about the proposal. This is basically including a longevity risk in the current design of the Chilean system, similar to Peru, Colombia, and Mexico. We want to have a multi-pillar system, non-contributive, it's also mandatory. You have 10% of the monthly salary with a maximum level of, in dollars, a taxable cap of $3,000 approximately. That would be the maximum. We also have a pillar which is voluntary. There where you do your voluntary savings for your pension. The private sector has had very good development, not that much in the public area. And we have to also include, we want to add a component of insurance here that can cover the fourth age, which we would call after you are 85 years and older. So what can we do? This has been done. It has been published by FIAP. It's also been published by the IDB a few years ago. And the idea is that we compare the pension of a sector and the payment profile that we could obtain by implementing this longevity risk. It's a deferred pension, which you get at 65 years of age, but it starts paying as of 85 years of age. This is similar to what we were discussing today. It could be done with the selfies or mutualization or ALDA, proposed by Mijelski. This is the same idea. So we want to compare the efficiency of this product by increasing the mandatory fee in the same amount than the cost of the insurance, the monthly cost of the insurance. This was done in 4 countries: Chile, Colombia, Mexico, and Peru. And in general, we see differences, of course. We have to do with the with the fees, with the fee rates. If they have more contribution, I need to have a more costly insurance. But the cost is basically between 15 and 20% of the regular fees that we have. In Chile, we have 10%, so the insurance cost, the monthly insurance cost would be 1.5 or 2. It's more expensive for women than for men because of longevity. We're going to look at that later. So this is how it's working today. When we talk about payout in Chile, the blue line is an annuity that pays a fixed amount during the whole life of the pensioner until he dies. The red line is a programmed retirement or programmed withdrawal. So the pension can reach 0. It happens in old age. In 2008, we have an adjustment factor. This is the green line, where the pension lowers at first because we need to have a balance so that it doesn't go under 30% of what it was at the beginning of the first payment of the programmed withdrawal. That's how it's working today. This covers longevity risk and programmed withdrawal, but a level which does not satisfy everybody. So what is this insurance about? Well, it's an annuity, a deferred annuity that you get at your pension, and they start. But how do we fund this? It's funded with contributions, regular contributions or regular fees during the whole active life of the worker. If I pay 10% in the case of Chile for the individual pension, which is mandatory, and I also have 1.5 additional fees to a mutual account. It's not an individual account, it's a collective account. It's a national account, in fact, because there's going to be monitoring of how much I invest. It could be like a mirror of this national account as to how I do my fund. The basic idea is to see how much I'm going to save in a mandatory way and how much am I going to contribute to this collective insurance. And that should be recognized afterwards for the longevity risk. So I am paid something according to what I have saved as an active worker. The green line here is the programmed withdrawal with the longevity insurance. This is quite attractive because the green line is higher than the red line, where programmed withdrawal with this additional fee, which is the purple line, is also below the green line of longevity. And this happens because there is more efficiency in the use of the resources, in the pooling for longevity. So in programmed withdrawal, it says if I have the line at 85 years old, so everything that they have saved in their mandatory account will buy a programmed withdrawal for that balance which is mandatory. And the longevity insurance is funded by this other parallel account, which is a collective insurance. So in a way, we are having a better pension for these people. Why is this more efficient than investing the same amount in the mandatory account? Because the longevity insurance does not have benefits for inheritance or for the beneficiaries. The idea is to keep the same benefit that they had in the current withdrawal. The beneficiaries are not losing their rights, but the longevity insurance does not add anything else. Here we have women. We have the similar profile. We could also see 100%. We can say 70% or 50% or 100% of the amount, and that will vary the cost with the insurance. And I will finish with this. This can be funded in many ways. One would be the state to provide the insurance. If we didn't have this contribution to this account during the whole active life of the worker, I think this would be quite important in savings. We could also have a contribution which is parallel to the mandatory contribution, and then we could also have a system of mutualizing things that some are very common, like 401k, those types of funding that are common in other parts of the world. And so that would be all. I think that I gave you a general overview. Thank you.
Gracias, Marco.
Thank you, Marcos.
Le doy la palabra.
I'm going to give the floor to Camille. I think he will have a different presentation. Good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation for this seminar. Today's presentation, what I'm going to tell you about is on the development that the Uruguayan government has been doing in the introduction of a new financial tool. These are the sovereign bonds that are indexed. They are indexed to the nominal wage. So I'm going to begin the presentation, first of all, describing some of the most important features of the system for Social Security in Uruguay, for it to be a context to understand the decision. That is the second point. That is, why should we issue indexed bonds to the nominal salaries? I'm going to tell you why we did this, what were the challenges we faced when designing this economic policy. And to wrap up, I'm going to give you some conclusions. Conclusions are very general, and some lessons learned during this whole process. In my presentation, I will focus on the most general and conceptual points. My colleague from the debt office, Mr. Saracha, will give you during the workshop more technical details on the logic of the design, the strategy, and the execution of the issuance of these bonds. So I'm going to begin with the Social Security system of Uruguay. From 1996, the reform established in Uruguay a mixed Social Security regime. So we have a distribution pillar and we have a capitalization pillar that is individual and individual savings as well, with a defined contribution. This distribution pillar is done by a public institution that is called a Bank for Social Security. And the individual ones are administrated by pension fund administrators that are known as AFAPs in Uruguay. Within this mixed system, we have all of those people or workers that from 1996 were 40 years old or less, and those who voluntarily wanted to go into the system. In the individual savings pillar, the administrators manage these savings and the contributions until the pension, until the retirement date. They retire and they get a pension from the bank and one from their individual savings. Something that is characteristic to Uruguay is that the retirements, the ones they get from the distribution pillar and the individual pillar, adjust every year according to the evolution of the average of the minimum wage in the whole economy. Different to other countries that adjust the retirements, most of them with the inflation rate. In this case, we do this with the salary index. This is in the Constitution of Uruguay, and it was voted in 1989 before the reform. What is the logic of this social contract that is there is that the workers, the active workers, share the return on profitability with those who are in the passive sector. As I'm going to explain the rest of the presentation, this kind of adjustment has a financial impact and poses challenges for the payout phase. This is the reason why I might have been invited to the seminar. I want to start, first of all, talking about the accumulation phase. What you're seeing here in the blue bars is the evolution of all of the savings or assets that are being managed by AFAP as a percentage of a GDP. As you may see, we have seen a constant growth in the last 22 years regarding the size of the economy. We have many factors that had an effect on this strengthening. First of all, the incorporation of new groups of people or generations to the system, the increase of real salaries and employment, the formalization of economy was increased, and also the profitability that was accrued by the AFAPs in the administration of savings. From the beginning of this mixed system, I would say in the last 20 years, the focus of attention of the debate for policies and economic policies has been focused on this pillar, in this phase of accumulation. Nowadays, AFAPs are a very important player in the capital market given the amount of savings that they have to invest. So when a person goes into the retirement age or they decided to retire, regarding the capitalization, the individual capitalization pillar, the funds administrator transfers once all of the accrued savings plus the net capital to an insurance company. This insurance company is the one that will be in charge of paying out their pension annuity. That is the individual savings pillar. This annuity is determined at the moment in which the people retire, and it has to be proportional, of course, with the total amount of savings that the person had during their whole active years. But it also depends on some other parameters. For example, the amount of the years that people have to live in the and also the parameter, that is the interest rate that the insurance company will give to this pensioner to administer their savings during their life while they're paying out. So the regulatory framework in Uruguay for this annuity system in the individual capitalization pillar is within the framework of the Central Bank of Uruguay. 20 years after the reform, this system has, of course, gotten mature. Those who were 40 years old in 1996, they are about to go into retirement age, and many people are retiring through the individual capitalization pillar. What is this graph showing? This is the amount of pension policies that have been issued by the insurance state bank. They are in the business of annuity. So you can see from 2015 and the projection, the forecast for 2019, the number of people that have acquired an annuity has multiplied times 7 in 5 years. If we can forecast onwards, you can see that the pensioners that will be under this regime of annuity will grow on a rapid pace in the following years. There, you cannot see the value, but for you to think about this, according to the forecast of the central bank, for the year 2046, that is in 27 years, you will have in Uruguay at 800,000 people that will be getting an annuity. Of course, this phenomenon of increase of annuities is part of a more general phenomenon, that is the relative aging of the population in Uruguay, as in the case of many countries in the region of Latin America. To see this, you can see below where you have the title 1990. Actually, we have here the population pyramid of Uruguay, where we have around 11.6% of the population that were 65 years old or plus, and those who were 14 or less were a quarter of the population. Nowadays, if you see above, you can see the forecast for 2050. This is done by the budgeting office of Uruguay, and what you can see here is it is forecast that around 22% of the population by that date will be 65 years old or more, and just 15% will be in the youngest sector. So this poses a challenge in the people who are actively working or not that go beyond the payout phase that we're talking about. But this is a wider phenomenon. Okay, so what we see is that we have a transition and maturation phenomenon to a payout phase in Uruguay. That means in some years, Uruguay will have macroeconomical importance that will be very relevant. So given this situation, I was telling you about the kind of adjustment of pensions in Uruguay because of the average of salaries, even if they have a good idea, the bottom of it has created some challenges, and one of those is related to the payout phase in the pension system of Uruguay. The problem is that the insurance companies that have responsibility to pay out the annuities didn't have in the market the financial tools that would also evolve with the average salary index. That is the unit they have to pay in their annuities. So what they're facing, or they used to face, was an uncertainty with it regarding matching the assets or returns on their assets, that is the reserves, to the currency nomination of their obligations. So they couldn't match this with the currency, and they couldn't do this in the long term. So in a business, as the annuities, where basically you have a long-term business, this mismatch would have a bigger effect. That was not the only financial problem we used to have, or that the insurance companies used to have. The second problem is that up to 2018, the interest rate that they had to pay those pensioners or had an annuity was done by an administrative process. And in many cases, that rate they had to pay, this insurance company had to pay, was bigger than the return they could get as insurance companies in the market administrating the savings of those pensioners. Even with these tools in which the insurance companies would use as an alternative to a tool that is indexed to the salary, for example, indexed to inflation, either way the return was way lower. So these two financial factors, plus some others related to the demographics and actuarially ones, made that in Uruguay, insurance companies, the private ones, would leave the market. So nowadays in Uruguay, we just have one company that is providing annuities, and that is a company that belongs to Uruguay, and it's called Banco de Seguro del Estado. So what is the situation? We have a situation in which we have a forecast of the growth that is exponential in the market of annuities, and this payout phase is just on one company, that is the Banco de Seguro del Estado, State Social Bank, State Security Bank. So this is the biggest macroeconomical challenge we have ahead of us, and we still have this. So given this challenge, what was the answer within the policies? So one of the options that was not really an option that we had taken into consideration was to reform constitution and trying to index pensions with inflation. And given the fact that we already had tools indexed to inflation, the insurance companies would have the match they needed. This option was not taken into consideration as a response for the policy. Why? Because this indexation had been voted out for by the rest of the population. So this is an institutional information. The mismatch that the insurance company used to have was a mismatch that came from the institution, different to the fact that we have a foreign currency mismatch that is a market mismatch. So what was the decision that was made? That is, it was to foster the development of financial tools that would allow the insurance companies, also including the para-state ones, to have a better management of their financial risks. And we were then looking for two things: insurance sustainability of the payout phase of the individual pillar for Social Security in Uruguay. And the second one that is very important as well is trying to foster the return of insurance companies that had left the market. That is, giving some people to compete within the market, to improve the efficiency and to give more options to the pensioners. So with these goals in mind and this response within the policies, the decision was trying to issue for the first time securities from the government in Uruguay in their currency. That is, the interest coupon that the bond is paying is the real return plus the evolution of the nominal salary. That is the nominal return of the bond. What were the criteria we used to design this security? First, the solution had to be a market solution. That means that had to be done through the prices in the market. That was very important because initially the people who would want this security would be the Banco de Seguro del Estado, and this belongs to the public sector. So we needed to be very careful with the transparency. We couldn't have any kind of cross subsidies in the rates we would be issuing these bonds with, these securities with. So we wanted also to have this Banco de Seguro, but other insurance companies. So the solution had to be market oriented. It had to be predictable and recurrent. If we wanted to promote, to foster more insurance companies, we needed to give them the certainty that in a 2 years period, 3 years period, 10 years period, we would keep on issuing this type of securities. Third, this had to be coherent with the strategic pillars of the debt management institutions of Uruguay. That is, we were in a case in which we had a mismatch in a part of the public sector, and we decided to incorporate a new tool for the financial management of Uruguay to be able to solve the problem. But we needed to do this without affecting any other goal. And at last, the solution we found had to be consistent and needed to give power to all of the changes and the regulatory changes that were being done by the central bank to strengthen the annuity system. We could not work in separate manner. We needed to be joined. We need to join our efforts. And this is very important. So in the new regulation of the central bank, the technical interest rates that the insurance companies will pay is not set at the same time. This will depend on the returns on the market of the sovereign bonds. That is the reason why you see the link between salaries, if you change the central bank, and the management of sovereign debt. How did this work? The first thing we needed to do was to create a new account unit. In Uruguay, to create this, according to the Constitution, you need to do this by law. So we went to the Parliament and we proposed a bill calling a wage-indexed pension unit. Once we created this in July 2018, we started to issue T-bills that were indexed to the wage-indexed pension units. This was later incorporated in the calendar of local issuance to make it predictable. And this will, then afterwards, Rodrigo will tell you about that. So this represented opportunities and challenges. And now let's see what we're really doing, that is debt management. As a good opportunity, of course, we have a new player in the market, that is Banco de Seguro, that is insurance of Bank of Uruguay. They would have an organic demand on the wage-indexed pension unit. So it's very good to diversify the funding sources and to reduce the dollar presence of Uruguay. Also, the cyclic profile of the payment of rates associated to this, it's good regarding the hedging of an issuer, since the nominal salaries are pro-cyclical. Every time that the economy would decrease, we will see the salaries would decrease as well. So the debt service is way more aligned to collection. So this would generate a less risky debt structure. What were the challenges we faced, and we still keep on facing? The first one, we needed to avoid fragmentation of bond market in local currency. Nowadays, Uruguay has one currency indexed to inflation is called UI. We have a fixed rate that is by nominal peso, and we have a third one that is UP, that is the wage indexed pension unit. The risk is that that could create inefficiencies in another market. So these risks are there, we know about those, and that is a reason why we are adopting an active policy regarding that. And then we are also trying to develop a market in which the players are essentially flying home. For example, think about an insurance company that buys a bond. Normally it's a buyer hold. So normally it's more difficult to develop this security market of this nature of players, and it's then more important in the making of prices to update them regarding their the issuance. And to conclude, I wanted to tell you some core topics and lessons we have learned. Within these risks that might seem to be away from the management itself of the financing of a country, we think that the debt of sovereign debt has a role with the market, in completing the market. We are trying to do this. We're trying to complete a market that didn't used to exist and for which we had a demand that was on salaries, units indexed by salaries. But this is not the only market we want to complete, because indirectly with this we're trying to foster, together with the central bank and the regulatory changes, the insurance market. So we have two markets that we're trying to foster at the same time. Second, for us, the importance of having a consolidated vision of the balance of the public sector and the risks that come from this. So the Banco Seguro del Estado was in all of these years working and losing. It was the only player there, and for the reasons I told you about, its profitability was negative for many years. And we know that all of the paths always go to the treasury. So anticipating and trying to develop tools, financial tools that would allow a better match is a way of ensuring sustainability. And to wrap up, I would like to highlight how important it is, and it is still for us, to have the coordination with the central bank in the sense that we were working together with innovations, regulations on the system, and at the same time we were given financial tools that would consolidate all of these innovations and regulations. Thank you.
Muchas gracias a los tres expositores.
Thank you very much to all the speakers. The presentations were very interesting. The three proposals were very interesting. The first two were addressed at longevity risk, and especially to see how we can make that risk maximize the pension, doing a good implementation during the whole life of the person, including plans, as Jessica said, or creating a proposal for longevity insurance, as Marco said. And lastly, also another challenge, as in Uruguay, to have the insurance companies address the mismatch risk or this constitutional restriction we have in our country. So thank you very much to all three of you for the presentations. The three of you were wonderful in keeping with the time limits. So I will ask you to only have 1 or 2 questions for the speakers. How many years did you have that bond issuance? The bond issuance in Uruguay was for how many years? Well, today we have issued 2 bonds, one in a term of 5 years, and the other one 14 years. We know that in that mismatch, not only currency is important, but also the term. And I can say that looking forward, we want to continue developing this market. And for us, that means to continue extending the curve of terms in the UP. And also to continue developing this market means promoting other agents in the public and private sector to also issue in UPs, that it is not only the state that does this in the market. There are no other questions, so I can close this panel. And once again, thank you. Thank you to all the speakers for being so clear in your presentations and mentioning all these cases. Thank you very much.